Hi all and welcome to Promethean Bryce YouTube channel and also on Instagram and at the prometheanbryce.square.site. So this is number 3 in the series of 3D models and 3D sculpting, and on this one we're just going to do, as you can see on the background, Colossus. So this is just a live commentary based on sort of what I did, how I did it. So let's just get into the video. So just here, the new method, like I was saying, just start off now with doing the normal spheres, turning them into spheres that I can mod for sculpt, and then getting that real basic shape out. And then just duplicating it across on the other side when I'm doing one side. So I tend to just work on the one for the details and the movements, and then just move it over sort of periodically just to, so it looks correct, to make sure I know what it's looking like. Another one with the feet here. I started doing this to the side with the reference, but I realised soon that it's pretty hard to do. So what I do now is I model it forward and straight on, and then side view if I've got the reference, or I'll use a reference like I was using on this one to the side, and then I'll just turn it into that position, so get it as best as I can. But yeah, from now on I do all of the basic set from chest, torso, upper legs, lower legs, feet, upper arm, lower arm, hands, all the fingers, which I was mentioning in the last video with my from gym, which I started doing from this video now, where I separately do the fingers, but you'll see soon. And then the head, and I'll do stuff like ears and that I'll do later, just because I need that basic shape for the head. So this is where I'm just doing the hands, just blocking them out nicely, block that sort of palm section out, and then after that I'll block out the fingers individually, so each knuckle to sort of joint sections. And then once I've done that, as you can see, I've just gone straight into doing muscle mass. Again, so we're doing it as we're going along, checking every now and then to see if things are right. Look, you see how I've constantly changing stuff over. You're never going to be perfect at first. I mean, you've just got to kind of get that basic shape in and then try and match it as best you can to that reference. And some people don't even use the reference, and there are some cases where I also don't use the reference. I'll just use something to the side. It's better to use the reference just because you can get that more accurate look, and it's just easier rather than going back and forth to pitch to the side. But yeah, this is just like I said, getting those very nice, as accurate as I can shape. And as sort of Colossus is going around, I'm actually doing these two bits separately, because that's going to line off later, whereas another one of his sort of sections comes out, so I didn't need to join that later, but that's just for later reference. So we're just blocking out each one of those muscle groups, constantly going back and forth to make sure it's correct. And then I'll do the knee on the bit below, because when I do the pose version later, where I join it together, eventually I'm going to hopefully get the animation version weight painted and pose it that way, but for now, doing it comfortably the way I know, just doing it 2 sections. So I'll do the animation version, which will just be in the pose. In the future I'm going to use T-pose, but in this one I'll use an A-pose, and in the Supergirl video, which will be next, I'll use an A-pose too. But I want to be starting selling them, so I will sort of get them into A-poses just because they're better to model, which I'll show you later, because I've done a little sort of test of an animation of a rigging software, but I'll show you that when it comes to it. But like I said, we're just putting each bit in and out, trying to get that basic shape, forgetting about the sort of the overlay where the metal goes for now, because that goes on top. So just getting everything done underneath from head to toe, and then we'll get. Let's have a look. So I'm just going around. Each one of these is stopping where I'm doing the videos, because I do a couple of hours, and then I just stop just to make sure the video doesn't corrupt the road, because I don't want to lose the work. But now I do it again. I've been doing this a little bit differently in each videos, but in this one I've sort of take it to the side and then make them. So like the nose, the lips, sometimes the eyes, depending on what it looks like, just to get that more accurate together. And then I'll put it over the top, and then mold that sort of base layer of the head around, as you can see that I'm doing here now. With the head, I'm constantly going back and forth, so I might think it's finished on one, and then I'll come back, say, later on one of the different sets, and then add a little bit more or move a little bit, just tweak it, because you're always, once you've done it, you think it's all right, but then so you come back another hour later and you notice that some things are out of shape. That's perfectly normal. Just keep editing it as you go along. So with this Colossus, I didn't have to worry too much about these eyes, because he doesn't have the sort of iris, is it? It sort of glows, so I just kept it as a still sort of overlay. So I didn't need to put the sort of balls in for the eyes and go around. You'll see this right now, look. So I'm just pushing it back and then sort of carving it in and just making it a little bit over the top for the eyelids and that, and then giving that just basic shape. Like I said, look there. And that for me is fine, because his eyes aren't necessarily going around. Like I said, I don't need to put that extra section in or delete that sort of area. And then, like I was saying earlier, when I've done the face, or for the face for the most part, I'll just stick some ears in, doing the same sort of method, constantly moving it in from front and side, making sure it's right, carving in those sort of extra ear sections. Again, with everything, I've got a little bit of a sort of what I'd like to call a cheat sheet, just something where it's got like a muscle mass from the internet, where I'm making sure I've got all those sort of in bits as best I can. But it is hard to do, so you've just got to keep going, and over time you just get better and better anyway. And with Colossus's head, it's quite simple here, because it's a very sort of basic shape going around, and then using the flat tool just to get that inner carve around it, and then just again just moving it into the places where you need to be. Sometimes you might not be able to get that exact reference because the drawings are a little bit off, so get it as accurate as you can, and then just look at it from the outside rather than using the exact reference, because sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. So with the feet, I'm blocking out that sort of base section. Sometimes I do these in, and then sometimes I do them out. I think on this one I started doing it in like this, but then I'll get a cube later and make the sort of sole for the foot just a little bit stronger. But you can do it either way. It's not an issue. It's just whichever you feel comfortable doing, or whichever you feel looks better. But again, constantly going back and forth, putting those move tools in, carving tools, adding stuff, taking it away. Again, not exactly to reference on here, but that's because I've built it from that front and side view and then turned it. Like I said, you reference, because it's drawn, it's not always going to be exact when you're looking from the side view and the front view. It's just the nature of doing it. You can get some better than others, but this one in particular was a little bit off. So here's where I'm doing the fingers. Like I said, each knuckle, and then moving it into the shape of that sort of each quarter of the finger, each section of the finger, not quarter. Then copy and paste them over, getting them all in that sort of the little finger, middle finger, and all that. So, and then with the thumb, I'm also doing the attachment that goes out with the thumb, which is technically part of the palm. And with Colossus, because he's all separated, I also did the sort of knuckles here separate, because all these don't need to be attached because they are separated by that sort of metal, and that's how it gives it the same look here. You'll see that as it goes through later. But you're getting that basic shape in, trying to get it as best you can into the shape of the sort of basic wrist there, whereas not quite clenched, just loosely curled together in a fist. So here's me just getting into that final section, making those muscles a little bit more realistic, sort of carving them in a bit more, getting that depth in. In future ones, I'm going to be putting colour on these, and I would advise people to use the colour, just because when you're doing it in the grey or the single colour, you don't really notice these small little details that look a bit different and a bit off. But when you put the colour in and you've got that, let's say he's got this sort of metallic grey here, if you would actually put that in, you would actually be able to see more of those muscle definitions and more of those sizing, which just makes it a lot better at the end, because it's really hard to tell unless you sort of make it that colour to make it that similar look. But again, it's all down to the people doing it. So once I've done that, I've started doing the clothes. If it's anything that sticks out like this, or anything sort of bulky, like the wristbands in a minute, I'll do them separately with different meshes, which are molded in. You can do your clothes this way anyway, and then use the section for the mask and extract the mask, which I'll be using later. I'll show you that one when it comes to it. But you're just putting that over the cross like that, putting it in, placing it down, getting it into that rough shape. With this one, for me in particular, it was pretty hard to do because I couldn't quite tell from the reference, and because it's an older sort of version of Colossus, it was hard to get those shoes right, so I had to do a little bit of improvisation, carving in these things that are there. In hindsight, I'd probably done these a little bit thinner. But by the way, sorry about the background noise, my family's here. So, but yeah, if you do the sections like that, it's just a lot easier. So this is where the wrist comes in, wristband. I didn't need to do. You can boolean these out to get them exact if you was doing it for an animation. But if it's just for a sculpt, I've said this before, you don't need to worry about it too much if it goes in, as long as it looks correct. So this, at first I've tried it different ways. This is where I was saying where I was doing over and that, but when you do it like that and boolean it, you can't put it around properly. It just doesn't work. Now, if anyone out there knows a better way of doing that, drop it in the comments and tell me. I'd like to know, because the more I know, the better. I've since learned how to use the curve tools as well. So if that's what your suggestion is, I'll thanks for the advice, but that's one I'll be using from future reference. But yeah, so you've got that basic layer in, you put a top layer in, top layer out. So I've done this a few times, as you can see, but eventually I just stuck with the one like here where it goes in, and eventually you can just boolean that out and it works fine because it's bigger. Because it's not it's tight to the skin, you can get away with that because it will look sort of rough and thick over. And again, if anything, I'll say that's preferable. And other than that, like if you want something skin tight, that's when you want to get the mask tool or go around with the plane tool and get it as close to the skin as you can. And then extract it, just because if you're trying to do that with sculpting, you're basically sculpting another section, and it's not going to be the best, and it just takes a lot more time, and it doesn't have as good result. So here, this is where I started learning how to use the curve tool to put a little bit of extra in. I learned this through a video that I didn't do, which I started of an anime girl that I didn't do the video for in the end because I thought it was going to go wrong, but I ended up doing it, which is on the website. You'll see if you want to see it. But yes, we're just using that extrusion and that to make the belt around. And because I wanted this to gap out, I've just done it separately. This is going to be where the X comes in. And a lot of this is just cylinders, boolean in, another cylinder in, keeping that one, and then boolean in the X in. And then when I get the curves there, the belt, I'll move that around to make it so it doesn't go inside the actual mesh of this. And it took me a few times to get this X right for some reason. I can't remember what I did wrong, so I apologise if you make the same mistake, and I can't help here. But eventually it did work. I don't know. I just can't remember what I did in the end. I might have separated and done it both at once. But yeah, then I've just added that to the belt, which I think looks pretty cool. It looks a bit like a wrestling belt. So this is what I'm saying before, where I've made the base of that shoe just so it's perfectly flat, and it just looks a little bit better. Because at the moment I feel like it's not as flat at the base, and it's just a bit awkward looking. So now I'm going to put that in and just move that shoe around like as if it would be a real shoe on top, because that's pretty much what you would do with a shoe in real life. Yeah, that top section over. It's not built in, is it, obviously? And that's where you get a little bit of crease. But I've kept it in on this one, again, to try and keep it as close to the reference as possible. So here, this is where I'm doing the mesh section. So I've joined them together, because in the end, he's not going to be joined, but to get the actual nice cloth look, I've had to join it together. Then I've got the mesh tool, grabbed that mesh tool, got the section as best I can, and then filtered it twice, at least twice, just to get it the best through cleaning up, so sharpen the mask. And if it's something like fur or something, you might not want to do that. But if you get a straight edge like that, you want to get the sharpen tool just to get it the best. Then you're just extruding it and then moving it around to what you need it to do. Like this is where sort of the shoulder blade bit comes out. And then just small tweaks because it's going to go over the clothes. But you just make those small tweaks and it's fine to do. It's much better than trying to do it separately. So you just bring that out, you put all your details in if you need any zips, any creases like I've done there. And then this is where I'm doing just that sort of metal section on Colossus where he sort of sections up. And you're just cutting in all the way around. Try and keep it one singular stroke around and then start again just to get that even look. And then you're just doing that for everyone. And this is when a Blender update came in when I was doing the middle of this, and they changed a little bit of something. Now they darken out the mirrored version, which I do, again, if you know how to sort that out, I'd be much appreciated. Just comment in there. But it's been a bit annoying me a bit because I've been sort of flipping it and it sort of reverses it. Just for people who are using Blender now, don't worry, it's not going to make too much of an issue. It's just when you're trying to add those stuff, it will go dark, so you can't really tell as much as you would on the light version if the details are incorrectly. So it's just a word of warning. And like I said, if anyone knows how to sort it, just please drop me in the comments and say what it is I'm doing wrong. So this is so I've done everything now, so I'm going to join it together for the animation version. And the animation version, like I said, is just the one where it's in that pose. And it's eventually I've got the mouth cut and teeth in and eyes and stuff done properly. But for these first couple, I'm just learning, getting back into the software. So this one won't be released as an animation version, but there'll be future ones that I'm in the process of making that will be. Like I said, I'm a few weeks ahead of these. I'm doing them in time, so I do have a couple ready to go, and I've got some Christmas ones coming up. Since it's December, so the next two will be Christmas versions, and I might release them a bit earlier. So yes, I'm just doing a bit of the teeth here to get that sort of look. I changed the face of this from the original one here, just because I thought it wasn't very good in the end, and we went back to a different sort of original plain one. So this is so that was all done. It's all joined together because I didn't need to join much. So once it's done, I dropped it into this animation software called AccuRig. It's pretty good. It's not perfect, especially the way I've done things at the moment. That's why I do them in a T-pose. It's really best to do it yourself just because it's never going to be perfect because it's an automated software. But if you've got a basic character, it's absolutely fine. So this is just coming in with the rig. You're putting the sort of bones and the weight structure in. And I just wanted to see what it would look like, essentially, if I was to animate it. This is why I didn't release it as an animation, because the reason I suggest doing it in a T-pose is just because you're not going to get that. I don't know if you can see it in a minute, but see how the arms underneath to the chest and that section, those wings, that's happening because the model is stuck together. That's why you want to do it in a T-pose, so it doesn't do that, so it has the shoulder section. So that's just something for future reference. So I did this a few times, but I ended up giving up on this one just because I didn't think it was very good. And then I just ended up doing it the old-fashioned way. But like I said, it might work for some characters that I do, and I'm going to drop a few, and I might post a few videos and stuff on Instagram of it a little bit, doing these walks and stuff. But like I said, if you can weight paint anyway, you're fine. It just takes a lot longer, and I'm trying to do them within a certain space of time, just so I can get more practice in. And then eventually I'm just going to be weight painting them. I just need to relearn how to do that, find some time. But you see how it's all sort of gone off a bit? So it sort of works. You got that basic shape. And it looks pretty cool, and it looks fun when he's animated. But like I said, I left it out and decided to go the old route of doing the pose the first way. So this is what I was saying. I didn't really like that face because it didn't really look realistic. It looked kind of off. So what I've done is just made the face again, kind of kept it a bit more comic-like, not like putting all the teeth in, and then getting him back, taking all the clothes off that I know I'm not going to be able to use again because it's going to move. making it the smallest bit of tweaks, and then posing it. So I used the pose sort of, I don't know if you can see it there in the background. I used a similar one to that, not the exact same. I tried to use another reference as well, because obviously you can't see the bottom of his legs and all that, so you don't know how it's working too much. I wanted to keep it kind of like as if it was going to go on that print out. That's what I've tried to do with all of them, because like I'm selling them for people to print out and use themselves, and then eventually, like I said, I'll be selling the animated versions. But yeah, so you're just making the small twists, and like I said before, you're making those small muscle movements and mergers, and just changing those little things where you know muscles are going to move around. And then you're moving the parts of the hand, which is easy since the way I did it separate. Just turning head, turning these little bits here and there. So you've got as close as you can to the pose that you want. And then once you've done the pose, similar to before, where you join it together, and you then get your mask tool and extract it, same way. Sharpen and extract. And just move it around a little bit. And then once you've done that, just on, if you saw there, I did one bit wrong. You've got to be careful to make sure that mesh isn't somewhere else, because if your pen flows a little bit to a side, you might get a bit off. So just keep a lookout for that. So on this one in particular, I didn't colour it, but I will, like I said, I will be on the next ones. It will be in colour at the end, just because I did put some colour on it. This is the first one I tried it with, but you'll see that later anyway. But yeah, it's just getting all those bits in, moving just those clothes in to make sure it matches properly. And because the legs and the belt was already done, we just reuse them, making those small little tweaks. And then once those are done and I feel like it's appropriate, you just do all the boolean in and smooth in. So you boolean it. So don't do it too much, but if it's a hand, you're going to need to go to about a 0.1, or else it's going to clash all that mesh together. But yeah, once it's done, it should look a little like that, nicely painted out when I've done it, looking in the comic style. Thanks very much. Please like, share, comment and subscribe.